You've probably already noticed it. There are all kinds of characters in the WWE. A rapper, an Undertaker, a superhero, a tribal chief. But you may not have known there has already been a pimp. It is a pleasure to meet you on the wrestling paradise for this documentary on the story of the Godfather, one of the most controversial characters in pro wrestling history. You will discover, among other things, why The Rock no longer wanted to ride in a car with him, the gift The Undertaker gave him after every evening they spent drinking together, but also the rather ironic job of the Godfather in real life and how he had to face Owen Hart on the day of his tragic death. And you will never guess which female wrestlers have already been part of his infamous Ho Train. You are on the wrestling paradise, the Godfather, the WWE pimp. Let's go. It's November 1st, 1998 on the Sunday Night Heat show. The Godfather arrives at the ring with some ladies. The Undertaker is going to join him and they are about to face off. But at that moment, in a colorful outfit to say the least and after taking off his feather hat, the pimp will try to offer a deal to the dead man.
I know that you like hoes.
We have to realize that we have the most serious character in the Federation, and that a guy who presents himself as a pimp tells him that he knows he likes the ladies. Even if he manages to stay inexpressive and intimidating as usual, we feel that The Undertaker is holding back not to laugh. He is facing someone who is actually one of his best friends in real life, and he finds himself in this surreal scene where the Godfather offers him some good time with his girls if he forfeits the match. In the end, Taker will be one of the few who won't fall for it.
I don't think everything's dead, but if it is, these girls will. Whoa!
Already this is one of the funniest segments of The Godfather, who never had such an important superstar in front of him, but it is also memorable if we know the relationship between the two men behind the scenes. In fact, if The Godfather works in the Federation, it is mostly thanks to The Undertaker. There is a real friendship between them since they are both part of the Bone Street Crew, a group of wrestlers who used to party together. They were the opposite of the clique, where we had Shawn Michaels and Triple H in particular, who especially wanted as much power as possible and who had a controversial reputation. Many wrestlers hated them and on the contrary appreciated the BSK group. Apparently, it has often happened that after long nights of drinking together, The Undertaker becomes sentimental and offers the Godfather his Rolex watch as a token of friendship. The next morning, however, when the dead man was no longer drunk, he wanted to get it back. After a while, this scene became so usual for them that the Godfather was preparing to return the Rolex even before The Undertaker came to ask for it. For the record, at the time when he was starting this pimp gimmick who arrived with his prostitutes, it was with The Undertaker that he recruited girls in a strip club in the middle of the day for the evening of the show. From the moment the Godfather became very popular among the fans, Vince McMahon took care of this recruitment. Later, with success, the strip clubs even contacted the Federation to offer their girls. Yet the Godfather could have very well never existed. His real name is Charles Wright, and he was born on May 16, 1961. It all started for him with the filming of the movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone. Wrestlers starred in it, and seeing Charles' massive physique and tattoos, who was taking care of the bar on the set, they advised him to try his luck in pro wrestling. After working for the legend Jerry Lawler in the United States Wrestling Association under the name of the Soul Taker and some other experiences, he will be recruited by the WWE under the advice of The Undertaker. He will leave the company and return several times. There, he will first be Papa Shango, a kind of scary voodoo wizard who had literally made the ultimate warrior vomit. Then he will be Kama the Supreme Fighting Machine, where his greatest achievement was stealing The Undertaker's urn at WrestleMania 11 and then melt it down to make a necklace. After that, he will be in the Nation of Domination. Initially, he was supposed to be the supernatural character of Papa Shango again at that time, but it was cancelled when the terrifying Kane was created. In this stable, he will mainly serve as a stooge for The Rock, which they were preparing to become one of the next big stars. It's also funny to note that the future famous actor used to go from city to city with him, but he had finally stopped because he reeked of marijuana that his colleague consumed a lot. Everywhere Rocky was mistaken for a smoker while he wasn't. Anyway, Charles knew his contract was ending soon and that when The Rock was going to explode, he would surely be fired. At that moment, he is chatting with his wife and she tells him that if he could show the fans who he really was and not a voodoo wizard, they could make it work. He had to be more himself, to take advantage of the creative freedom he was given at that moment to create something that suits him. In real life, Charles Wright is a manager of a strip club in Las Vegas. That's what he was before wrestling, and that's what he goes back to when he's not in the WWE. In that world, he sometimes had to deal with pimps, individuals he hated so much that he forced them to leave his establishment, even going so far as to hit them. Based on how he was in real life, his wife will find him the name of the Godfather. But at first there was no question yet that he was a pimp. The idea was for him to be himself, for everything to be authentic. That is what made the tremendous success of Stone Cold Steve Austin at that time, who only amplified who he really was in life. In his determination not to be left with nothing after The Rock became a megastar, Charles already asks to be called the Godfather. He has a first experience in a non-televised show where he faced Bradshaw, who would become JBL a few years later. On that day, while nobody usually cares about their match, he told Bradshaw he was a pimp and offered to lend him his girls if he forfeited the match. At that moment, the ladies were not there to accompany him yet, but he said they were waiting for him backstage. When the future JBL refused and ended up beating him, he would say this phrase. Unlike before, he made the people react who loved this whole scene, and from there, the pimp character of the Godfather was born. It's July 27th, 1998 on Monday Night Raw, the company's flagship weekly show, and it's historic. That evening, it is the first time the Godfather arrives with his prostitutes, which was his idea. We will notice he has a rather bling-bling style and that he is classy. It is also his wife who will take care of all his outfits. He asks the ladies for kisses. As we have said, they were strippers or sometimes actresses. For the record, future female wrestlers Lita and Victoria have already been part of it. From that moment on, the Godfather gets reactions, and it is understandable since, as Dean Ambrose said,
"Who's gonna boo hot chicks?"
In October 1998, the Nation of Domination will end when Mark Henry attacks The Rock, and the Godfather will now be able to be a singles competitor. Do you want to find out how he became a very popular character during the Attitude Era and the secrets behind his success? By the end of the video, you will have all the answers. Don't worry.
It's time once again for everybody to come up on the whole train.
From January 1999, we can consider the Godfather was completely different now, and that he had already become a superstar that the spectators adored. When we see him arrive on the Sunday Night Heat show on January 17, 1999 to face Goldust, how can we not love him? He is full of energy. We feel his enthusiasm with his little dances. His theme song, in which we hear him speak, starts with a few notes of electric guitar before a rather funky track. It goes perfectly with the character's vibes. On that day, we can only notice the popularity of his two catchphrases. There was not only the famous one, but also an expression that was imagined along the way. From now on, this sort of young ladies convoy who accompanied him to each of his entrances had a name, the Ho Train. It was like a wagon he was driving, and he invited everyone on board. Another great element on that day is the wrestler Al Snow, who will come disguised as a woman, as if he were part of this train to get his object back and distract Goldust. Seeing that, and this segment's overall atmosphere, we feel creativity, madness, freedom, a fully invested crowd. It's really great. The Godfather was popular, and it will pay off for him. It's April 12, 1999 on Raw, and the Big Boss Man is supposed to face Goldust for the Intercontinental title, but the Pimp didn't agree with that, and he would like to take his spot. What a look with that cane too. On commentary, Jerry Lawler was the happiest to see Godfather's ladies arrive, and his enthusiasm helped even more to get invested in this segment. The deal he cuts with the Big Boss Man is hilarious. In exchange for having the 5 girls just for him, he agrees to give him this Intercontinental title opportunity. After a very short match in which the Pimp does a move where he imitates a train and rushes at his opponent in the corner, he wins the belt. He can celebrate in good company, and personally I love this atmosphere. He's dancing, the fans are laughing and having fun, we're having a good time, it's entertaining to watch. Against all odds, the Godfather holds a rather important belt, since it is traditionally a first step for a WWE wrestler before winning the main title. His reign will last 1 month and a half, with a loss on May 25th against Jeff Jarrett. On a more serious note, you should know he was supposed to lose it 2 days before at Over the Edge against Owen Hart. But it was on that day that the Canadian tragically died in an accident while arriving at the ring from the heights of the arena. In the Owen tribute show the next day, he will offer to his opponent, Road Dogg, not to fight for this special day and instead go to town with his girls to smoke all night. Road Dogg will agree by saying that they will light one up and tell each other Owen Hart stories. The two men leave the ring without facing each other, a touching moment that represents the authenticity of that time period, for better or for worse. In this scene, we will also note how much the fans scream the Godfather's catchphrases, a sign of his great popularity. In the rest of his career, The Godfather had a teammate who was obvious for him, the WWE adult movie actor Val Venis. For the record, they are both big marijuana fans in real life. It was only logical that the big Val Bosky, the name Venus gave to his penis, was attracted to the pimp's ladies. Even if his popularity was huge in the arenas, there were people who found his character immoral and his use of women very degrading. That is something that will be even more a problem in a few months, as you will see. In the Raw of November 15, 1999, a protester, for example, came during the Godfather match against Kurt Angle with a sign that said that the Federation was dirty and immoral, which the pimp destroyed. Since this interference distracted him and made him lose the match, we can wonder if it was a real protester. In any case, even women loved the Godfather and his hoe train at the time. Some even had signs where they asked to be part of it. A highlight of his career will remain his participation in WrestleMania 2000. There was a tag team match with D'Lo Brown against Bull Buchanan and the Big Boss Man. He had the honor of being the opening match of the evening, which he can be proud of since it shows he was trusted to energize the crowd. He even had an entrance with the rapper Ice-T, who was dressed up like him. So he launched the most important show of the year on a high note. A few days later, a wrestler dressed up like him to face him on SmackDown. The Big Show, who became the showfather that night. His imitation was hilarious, even though he didn't have any girls with him. On May 15, 2000, while the Pimp had a hardcore title match against Crash Holly, it even happened that one of his ladies was champion for a few seconds. Indeed, this belt is defended 24/7 against anyone, and she seized the opportunity, before quickly losing it. I think it was once again creative and fun. Finally, we can mention the interaction the Godfather had with Chyna on June 4, 2000 at Sunday Night Heat. On that day, he was wearing a beret and a very exotic vest. He was impressed by the body of the one who was coveted by Eddie Guerrero at that time. He was so excited he suggested he could get rid of his ladies and make her join the hoe train. This offer will end with a refusal and a bouquet of roses shot. However, this doesn't reflect the Godfather's success during the Attitude Era, which was in full swing at that time. It was a context where the WWE was politically incorrect, more adult, with strong characters, stories without any limit, even shocking. Television ratings were better than ever in the company's history. According to Charles Wright, everyone recognized him at the airport at that time, whereas a few years before, it was only a few people. Like the big wrestling stars at that time, he was on screen as he was backstage, someone who liked to have fun and was chill. Like other successful wrestlers, he was the best when he wasn't playing a role but true to his personality. By the way, Vince McMahon, the boss at that time, also loved this character and totally supported him. When the Godfather explained to him the meaning of his catchphrases that could be related to marijuana and how he wanted to reach the fans through it, Vince saw no problem. But unfortunately, there are people who didn't like his success and who will sabotage his career. From the moment the WWE became a public company and SmackDown was broadcast on UPN, a national and public broadcasting network, it was the beginning of the end for the Godfather. Everything he was doing on television, such as encouraging people to smoke marijuana or calling these ladies hoes, or obviously the fact he was a pimp, attracted the attention of the Parents Television Council. So the PTC, remember those initials, carefully took a closer look at the shows and felt that its programming was inappropriate for primetime television. With the PTC, the Federation could no longer let the Godfather be himself and do whatever he wanted, especially since they apparently managed to convince Coca-Cola to withdraw their commercials. So they had an idea to totally renew his character while making fun of the PTC. They created the Right to Censor, the RTC. This group was a parody of the PTC. They wanted to cover women who were too naked in shows, censor spots that were too violent. It was a faction of villains with a mind-numbing alarm as a theme song that was awful. And it was directed by Steven Richards. It is July 24, 2000, and the Godfather, in front of his ladies, is facing Bull Buchanan, the first RTC member. The stakes were high. He agreed to give up pimping if he lost. In the end, he did lose, and so he joined them. He started wearing a shirt and a tie in the ring, which was the Right to Censor's official outfit. He renamed himself the Goodfather and began teaming up with Buchanan. He will also be joined by his old buddy, who could no longer be an adult movie star, Val Venis. His main feat in the RTC will remain the tag team title he will win on November 6, 2000 against the Hardy Boys, before losing it 1 month later at Armageddon. In reality, it was a WWE strategy to prevent the Godfather from leaving. He told an official he was no longer having fun in this new role and that he was going back to his club in Las Vegas, so they gave him this belt. Indeed, they knew that he would not leave with the belt, which was clever. The fact is, he will stay a few more months after that, with in particular a tag team match at WrestleMania 17 against Taz and a PA, but in June 2001 enough will be enough. It was a period he didn't like, and he made Steven Richards pay for it, whom he mistakenly considered to be responsible for this situation. While he had total creative control when he was the Godfather, he was no longer himself and was unhappy. He tried to do his best, but it ended up being too much. He finally asked to be released from his contract. He was even ready to leave from the day he found out he would be in the RTC. Nevertheless, his story with the Federation wasn't over at all. This is the 2002 Royal Rumble. We are getting ready to welcome a new entrant, and yes, he's back. The Godfather is here. Without his hat, but still with his ladies, he is happy in a little dance full of euphoria. In total, it is no less than 12 girls that he will bring on the stage. It's a comeback that creates a total offbeat interruption in one of the most important matches of the year. It was great to get back to the character that made him successful, and in which he flourished the most. However, this new period with this return to fundamentals will be very different. From now on, he was no longer the pimp who had a hoe train, but the boss of a legal escort agency. That's not all. He had to be much more careful with his language. He couldn't be on television anytime, never before 9 p.m. In summary, he was a politically correct version of himself, and they had to make sure he wasn't on TV when there were a lot of viewers. As Charles Wright himself said, it was the Godfather light. It was no longer the Attitude Era. Everything wasn't allowed anymore. The company had to be much more careful, so this pimp character couldn't be resurrected as it used to be. Charles thinks that at that moment, the fans wanted the old Godfather, and that's why, in the end, it won't work. They will make him turn heel, and he will have a short rivalry with Val Venis on SmackDown, before getting suspended between May and August 2002 for being vulgar with the fans during a non-televised match. It definitely wasn't his year, and the last significant thing that will characterize this period will take place during a rather important segment. We are on SmackDown on September 12, 2002, and we are celebrating the union between Billy and Chuck. Before this ceremony was ruined by a disguised Eric Bischoff and the future Umaga, who will attack Stephanie McMahon, the Godfather made a surprise comeback to come and interrupt this sort of wedding, which will become a habit. Always with the same aplomb, he will remind Billy and Chuck of their past with women. It may not seem like it, but this scene symbolizes the turning point in the Godfather's career towards one-shot appearances. From now on, when we see him on the screen again, it will be to create a fun moment. This is actually the only interesting thing to remember from this return in 2002, since in December, he will be dismissed. At that moment, he was saying goodbye to the full-time wrestling world to return to the Cheetahs in Las Vegas, which he still had. His serious relationship with the WWE was over. However, in the following years, he would accept to do it again, just for one night. During the Vengeance pay-per-view in 2005, announcer Lillian Garcia proposed to the world's largest love machine, Viscera, another politically incorrect and sexualized character in the WWE. But there's a man who's going to come and stick his nose in their business. The Godfather had returned with his ladies. The reason why he was there was simple. He was coming to remind Viscera of the pleasures of life, everything he would no longer have by getting married. We can say that he represented temptation and evil, and he was going to succeed in changing the behemoth's mind. Big Viz was breaking Lillian's heart by joyfully leaving with the prostitutes. Charles Wright now had a legend's contract in the company. Even without wrestling and without working full-time, he was paid every month. He was in the company's video games and could make appearances from time to create a fun moment. For the Godfather, it was a victory because it proved he had done great things in the Federation and that his years there impacted the fans. It was the official Michael Hayes who had contacted him, and Charles had agreed to do something fun without wrestling, so that he could also be able to ride his motorcycle peacefully. On September 21st, 2007, another wedding took place on SmackDown. This time it was Teddy Long and Crystal Marshall, in a carefree and light atmosphere. At the moment when the crowd was asked if anyone opposed this union, the Godfather arrived with his famous train. He embodied temptation once again, but Teddy loved his Crystal too much to give in to it. This will not be the case for all his male colleagues. By the time the pimp returns to the locker room, all the wrestlers will accompany him, except Ron Simmons. Even commentator JBL is going to leave his job to join the party. We never know when the Godfather will arrive, and we will have seen just that at the 2013 Royal Rumble. It was time for number 17, and 11 years later, he made his comeback in a Rumble, but with only 2 women this time. He will take off his coat and hat, enter the ring, and be immediately eliminated by Dolph Ziggler in one of the fastest eliminations of all time. But it will take more to hurt the Godfather's morale, who puts on his hat, his glasses, and leaves dancing. It is with the same pleasure that we will see him again for Monday Night Raw's 25th anniversary in January 2018, where he will present his new girl Olivia to Mark Henry, his former Nation of Domination teammate, and also for the 30th anniversary in 2023. That night, he was sort of the bouncer for the Poker Club, and JBL and Baron Corbin wanted to get in. Corbin wasn't on the list, but a few dollar bills will fix the problem. I also find it absurd to simply have a door and nothing else. In July 2019, he also appeared for a special show in a nod to the past, where we saw him dancing with interviewer Charlie Caruso. All this career full of entertaining moments, from Papa Shango to Godfather, via Kama Mustafa and the right to censor, will earn him a Hall of Fame induction in 2016. It's the ultimate consecration for a wrestler, and it definitely makes him a legend. He was inducted by his friends JBL and Ron Simmons, and will delight the crowd with his usual humor. He may not have main evented WrestleMania, nor won the WWE title, but he will have managed to be more popular than many champions. Whether he shocked or amused people, fans will never forget the Godfather. We can say that the Godfather's journey really is amazing. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the Paradise of Wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?